He imagined the smell of the rooms inside, the colour of the gloss paint on the walls, and was overcome with an irrational terror. Fran's killer had sat inside that building and had justified his violence with a string of meaningless words. The memory of the encounter came back occasionally to disturb Perez, and it was with him now, paralysing him and preventing him from moving, the anxiety and the rage making him feel physically ill. He could almost convince himself that he was having a heart attack. "Why don't you come to my place?" he said quickly. "Not the house in Ravenswick, but my old place down by the water. I was there only a few days ago to air it. There'll be coffee and tea, beer if you fancy it. We can talk there without interruption. You can come down in my car and I'll drop you back." He knew he was talking too much, but felt he'd be better in his own territory. "Why not?" Sandy said, as if it was the most natural offer in the world. The woman said nothing, but she followed. The house was tall and narrow and stood with its feet in the water. Once boats had moored outside to unload their goods. The rooms were filled with a reflected liquid light. "What a lovely place." Willow walked ahead of him and looked around. She stopped just inside the door and he nearly knocked into her. The long hair brushed across his face and he smelled the shampoo she'd used that morning. Lemon. Perez stepped back, shocked because he wanted to reach out to touch her, to run a hand over the curve of her shoulder, and he'd thought he'd never want to touch a woman again. Furious again, this time at himself. He sat them in the living room and went to the tiny kitchen to make coffee. There was a packet of biscuits at the back of the cupboard, and he ripped it open and tipped them onto a plate. Chocolate digestives, Cassie's favourite. He pulled a can of lager from the fridge for Sandy. He heard the murmur of conversation, but made no attempt to listen. The flash of curiosity he'd felt earlier that day about the Jerry Markham murder had long gone. He wondered why he'd bothered to get involved, to walk down the hill to the Ravenswick Hotel to talk to Peter and Maria. When he carried in the tray, Willow was still standing at the window, looking over the Sound to Bressie. She took the mug that he handed her and sat, straight-backed on the floor. Sandy pulled open the beer and took a handful of biscuits. "So, what have we got?" Willow said. She looked at them, and Perez thought they were an odd team for her to be lumbered with. It didn't seem fair when it was her first major case. An emotional cripple who was likely to burst into tears or lash out at any opportunity, and a young, whalsy man who hadn't really had the chance to grow up. Suddenly, he felt sorry for her and made an effort to become engaged. "Did you hear that Markham left Shetland under a bit of a cloud?" Perez said. He described what he knew of Jerry's relationship with Evie Watt. "I've seen her about," Sandy said. "She didn't go into bars much. You'd have had her down as a quiet, studious sort of girl. Her father's always going on about the old ways in his column, and she seemed kind of old-fashioned to me too, religious." "So she's not one for partying then," Perez said. Sandy liked girls who were up for a party. "No," Sandy said. "Not at all." "But she fell for Jerry Markham." Willow looked up, and was too naive to stop herself getting pregnant. Or perhaps that was her strategy. She thought it would be a way of holding on to him, the glamorous young journalist. Only he ran away. "She lost the baby soon after," Perez said. "It looks as if she's graduated and is working in Shetland. It might be worth tracking her down. She'd provide an insight into the man, even if she's an unlikely suspect." "Will you do that, Jimmy? She's more likely to talk to you than to an outsider." Perez thought this inspector from the Western Isles was pleased to find him something to do, something safe and easy to build his confidence. He didn't resent it. For once it was a relief to follow orders instead of give them. If he were heading up this team, he'd do exactly the same thing. "Sure," he said. The next day was Sunday. He wondered if Evie was still religious, if she'd be at the kirk, or had she lost that comfort while she was south at the university. "We need to check Markham's phone." Willow was talking again. She seemed quite comfortable on the floor, one leg stretched in front of her, the other bent.